Welcome to another Digital Town Hall conversation. This week we'll be talking about volunteering internationally and locally and how volunteering benefits the individual, our communities as a whole, businesses, and therefore, of course, our state and our families. I'm joined today by Wendy Rice, President of the Green Mountain Returned Peace Corps Volunteer Association, which is actually a pretty big group. We'll get to that in a minute about how amazingly big it is. And our Principal Vermont Connector, and Principal Vermont Connector, which I don't even know exactly what that is, so we'll learn about that. And Gina Pandolfo, if I got that right, is also a returned Peace Corps volunteer and currently is the program coordinator at the Center for Women in Enterprise in Burlington. And as usual, I'm going to start with just asking you each to introduce yourself a little bit and what your service was like, where were you, what was it like to live in the communities you lived in and serve the people that you were serving, maybe the project you were working on with your focus, or and maybe a particular takeaway that you want to share. So Wendy, I'll start with you and roll.
Thank you for having us here today.
Sure.
As the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, my name is Wendy Rice. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in the Sahelian region of Cameroon, so in the far northern, predominantly Muslim community. My principal job was agroforestry, and I was also the environmental education Peace Corps volunteer leader. So I was a train ride, a large vehicle, a small vehicle, and a motorcycle ride away from the Capitol. And I was the first volunteer in my community, so I spent a lot of time planting trees, teaching sustainable agricultural techniques, working at the Women's Economic Development Center, and leading a young girls environmental education program. Was the crux of the work assignment that I had for 3 years in Cameroon.
Wow. And was the Sahel region, just maybe you can describe what that means for our listeners and why trees and forestry there?
Sure. So hot and dusty. My village would get up to about 120 degrees in the hot season. Very, very little tree cover and plant cover. High rates of erosion, primarily from wind, but also from water. And soil that wasn't very rich, like our dark good soils of Vermont. So we planted trees as windbreaks and erosion controls to get nitrogen back into the soil, to prevent animals from eating the crops. So a real necessity in a very harsh climate to implement those types of strategies.
And Gina, what was your experience in the Peace Corps? You both, I think, had to learn new languages probably, right? And really whole new cultures, because in the Peace Corps, we are all, it appears, maybe I'm wrong, sort of majority white, but you're going to places that you're then the minority, so the impact of that too, which I didn't really ask you, but we can chat about that too. Of what's it like to be in a different circumstance?
Yeah, so my Peace Corps service took place in central Paraguay, so kind of in the heart of South America. And I was a community health volunteer there and had the opportunity to work with community members on various projects that entailed things like environmental health, personal, like parasite prevention and things like that, and then also youth leadership, sex ed. A lot of things fell under the category of community health, so that was great. And in regards to learning a new language, Paraguay actually has 2 nationally recognized languages, which are Guarani and Spanish. So arriving without much Spanish under my belt, I was challenged to learn 2 new languages. I ended up communicating to others mostly in Spanish and then being communicated to mostly in Guarani. So that was kind of an interesting experience. And I felt like I had 2 years of really getting to know people, and kind of relationship building came first and foremost during my service, rather than kind of stepping into those professional roles was almost secondary. So.
And for either of you, do you have a way to express what was the feeling? What was the, most of your work was to benefit others, but how did you feel it also benefited you? Was it what did it do for you, helping others, whether it be internationally or we'll also come into the state level, but starting with Peace Corps, what worked?
For me, the experience was really quite transformative. It altered my entire career trajectory.
Wow.
I stayed in international development for a very long time, and when I returned from living overseas, primarily in Africa, I still wanted to be doing very impactful community-based work. So I went on and worked for FEMA for a good period of time, responding to natural disasters and humanitarian assistance. And then now really realizing my leadership and my management style, that community and service are very critical to how I want to navigate. And it's a big choice of why I came to Vermont, because I think the state as a whole has the ethos of community and service and sense of place. But I got far more than I think I imbued in the community there. Hospitality and integration and seeing things through an entirely new lens, and realizing that there's a lot of different perspectives and ways of going about things, and that we're all better together, and you can achieve really amazing impact with the help of a community and of people that are motivated to make their place better.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
Sure. I love what you said, Wendy, about how we're all better together. I think that's definitely something that I feel runs true throughout the experiences I've had working in Vermont, studying in Vermont as well, and I've noticed that so much in Paraguay. I think that along the same vein, what I took away from my time as a Peace Corps volunteer I tend to think of it often whenever I meet someone new in a professional capacity. I am kind of thinking in my Peace Corps hat of how can we relate on a personal level before we can work together professionally. I think getting to know someone one-on-one in an informal capacity is really helpful to make strides professionally. So yeah, I think my time in Paraguay for instilling that in me.
And do you think that can translate to volunteerism locally? In terms of, what either roles you currently have in Vermont, volunteering yourselves or helping others volunteer, and what people can get out of, not everyone can do the Peace Corps. Yeah. Not everyone can travel all over the world. Even though Peace Corps pays for some of that, the circumstances don't necessarily allow for it. But, there's a tremendous number of volunteer opportunities here. Do you think that experience can be translated and can be similarly fulfilling and or beneficial here, or do we not really face the challenges that people face in the Sahel region or central Paraguay, and therefore, just do it yourself? Why volunteer for others? Why help others?
Sure. Well, I think that I'm a big believer in something that you can take your values anywhere. So something that I might have learned in Paraguay, I might have come to learn that in a different context than I could take away from an opportunity here in Vermont. But I think that the most important thing is allowing the time in any responsibility that you have to reflect on how you relate to your experiences, how you relate to other people around you, how you do your work and go about your day, and are you living through your values? And I think that that can happen no matter what, as long as you try to take time for being intentional.
Yeah, and sometimes we're in such a busy world now, right? From the struggle of low wages and just paying people's bills, and that comparative difference of costs to wages, which I don't know if you're aware, but a study came out recently that in Vermont our cost of living is about 1.6% above the national average, so that's a challenge for some, of course, and we're a little above the national average, but our incomes are about 82% of the national average. So for a lot of people, that income side is really a challenge. So they're working more and more hours, just struggling to get by. So the idea of doing more for the community or having time is a real struggle. On the other hand, some other folks maybe have a little more time, and how that can interplay with the opportunities to maybe work towards. It could be civic engagement, trying to change policies that will help people's income, like raising the minimum wage or paid family leave, which gives people the opportunity to have time with their families and not be struggling so hard every minute. And so maybe volunteering through civic engagement is one way to help folks, but there's other ways, right? Like it could be volunteering at a child care center so that a child care center can provide more opportunities for people to have hours to work, so they don't have to work into the evening, but they could work during the day and they can be home with their family in the evening. So I know there's a lot of different volunteering opportunities. There's VISTA, there's Peace Corps obviously, but AmeriCorps VISTA, I think some of you have some experience with those. Can you talk a little bit about like both those opportunities and Vermont's and Vermonters, because I think Vermonters are pretty amazing. We do a lot of volunteering. If you know a little bit about how many Vermonters travel overseas, per capita, or volunteer through AmeriCorps VISTA in our state or elsewhere. Do you know a little bit about some of that? Can you share those?
Sure, I'd be happy to share that. I think to just add to what Gina just said, the transporting of your values can definitely happen in any community. And I think volunteerism is creating intentional community. It's reflecting those values and creating a society that you want to live in yourself and that you want to leave for future generations. And so there's always communities that are suffering. There's always communities that have needs. It may be a different issue than what you might see overseas, and the scale may be different, but you still have people that are struggling to find work, that want to work working landscapes, that need access to good healthcare. All those things are transversal, and there's a need. And so by volunteering, you're instilling those values, you're creating community, you're being exposed to people that might be others, and creating a space to work together and to create dialogue and interact together. And you have an impact for your community, and you bolster the nonprofits and the businesses that are already doing that good work with your human hours. In terms of Vermont, we have a very rich history of being civically minded and of being committed to community service. I think that's evident in some of our traditions like Town Hall Meeting Day and Green Up Day. It's also evident in terms of the number of volunteers that we send into Peace Corps or VISTA. For 5 years running, we were the #1 per capita state for Peace Corps volunteers overseas, sending volunteers. This last year we just slipped into second place, so we gotta get that back up.
Uh-oh. You hear that, everybody? Just think about sending some more folks into the Peace Corps. Get them excited.
We got recruiters at UVM and St. Mike's and other places that can help you navigate that. But in the time since Peace Corps was created in 1961, we've sent 1,622 Vermonters overseas to spread goodwill and to bring technical assistance and to just exchange cultures and ideas. And right now there's currently 43 volunteers that are serving overseas from Vermont.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because you just mentioned UVM and St. Mike's, but that's really one little corner of Vermont. Are there either other locations where there's volunteer coordinators or recruitment, or is there a website or a phone number relating to, if you're from, Putney, you're not going to go to St. Mike's.
There's, neither of us speak for Peace Corps headquarters, but peacecorps.gov would be the principal site to look for. There are regional recruiters, and you can get connected through peacecorps.gov. And even a very important aspect of Peace Corps that I didn't mention from the southern portion is the School for International Training was actually the original training site for Peace Corps. And their model has carried into 50 years of Peace Corps service for training and culture. So we have
another Vermont-based organization set the trend for the country. Right, that's right. And possibly there may be a recruiting center nearby that's not in Vermont, but you're still a Vermonter, whether you do your recruitment work nearby, right? Whether it's Albany to the west from down south or Kingman to the east, which I don't know that those have those centers, but you're saying peacecorps.org?
Peacecorps.gov.
Has some of that information. Thoughts? Yeah,
I was just going to mention that in addition to over 1,600 Vermonters joining Peace Corps since it started, right now in Vermont there are about 400 AmeriCorps VISTA positions, and what I am also a VISTA alum, and so what VISTA stands for is Volunteers in Service to America, and it is one branch of AmeriCorps, which has a lot of amazing opportunities for folks of any age to be engaged. VISTA itself serves in capacity building positions within organizations that serve to combat poverty in one way or another. And so I think VISTA is also something that is an incredible asset to not only the economy of the state of Vermont, but also the workforce, and bringing more qualified people and motivated people into those nonprofit spheres.
Wow. Yeah, and actually, I don't know if people know the history, or another piece of history is that one of the head early on directors of AmeriCorps VISTA was a former legislator in Vermont, born native Matt Dunn, under the Clinton administration, was in AmeriCorps VISTA and running the program nationwide, I think. So Vermonters go out there and impact in all kinds of ways. And you know, as we talk about volunteering, before the show, you mentioned a little bit about how volunteering and getting involved can also be in civics. Our communities, every town has different boards. Sometimes there's planning and zoning commissions, sometimes there's not, but you've got cemetery commissions and you know, all kinds of different boards and commissions in the community that are often really looking for folks to do these volunteer services that are part of what keep the communities thriving and growing and looking to the future. And so there's opportunities just for those out there, really in every community, for both civic volunteering as well as community volunteering. And you know, you mentioned Green Up Day, and that's a massively organized day, and it's a moment. You know, there's volunteering that could be every week. I'm going to go to the library, I'm going to go to the food pantry, or I'm going to help at a child care center. And then there's the one-offs. Once a year, I'm going to walk with my family for an hour along the road and clean up some trash. And I can just say my mom lived in Virginia, and when I would go down to visit, the amount of trash on the side of the roads was so different than what we have here. And we cleaned up along the border of her property every time I would go visit. But we sometimes don't see how amazing it is until you go somewhere else. And it doesn't mean going somewhere else to a whole other country necessarily, but even just leaving Vermont, you realize, oh my goodness, look how we do care for our neighborhoods. And with Green Up Day, that's one day in May. Anybody could any day just go outside for a walk with a trash bag and pick up some trash.
Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of community service, it doesn't have to be coordinated. You don't have to be recognized for it. But sometimes I think it just, you know, you feel good when you finish doing it, whether you've been asked to or not. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but with, you know, I guess back to your travels overseas and our discussions, very, very prominent discussions in Vermont, attracting people to Vermont, and particularly expanding the diversity of Vermont. You know, how do you think volunteering relates to those topics, and bringing people to Vermont, or keeping people in Vermont, or so forth? Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we both have some ideas. Deloitte and Touche did a very exhaustive set of surveys of the impact of volunteerism and community service. And they found that it's really important to have some sort of corporate social responsibility or volunteer engagement type of program for businesses, because it enables you to recruit more talent, to retain more talent, for that talent to speak more highly of your business and refer to other companies. I think particularly a younger generation really wants to feel impact and feel engaged, and they want to work for a company that reflects those values. And so just in Vermont, I mean, back to our numbers, it's estimated that 33% of Vermonters already volunteer, and if you convert that into labor and monetize that, that's $451 million of service hours that have been contributed into our economy and growing our economy. And a lot of people want volunteerism to build their technical skills, to build their leadership skills, their communication skills. It really is a very exciting incentive for many persons who might want to live in Vermont, and it helps the company with their triple bottom line. It helps their influence and their connection with the community. It helps bolster their internal training programs and build skills. But there's a bit of a gap between businesses actually creating those programs and identifying the nonprofit need and connecting young workers using their technical skills in a nonprofit that might need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of buzz in Vermont right now about attracting young people to work and stay and live here. and 61% of millennial hires consider jobs a company's commitment to community service, and so I kind of feel like what is a better way to draw and retain people to work here than for businesses to consider community outreach as part of their model, whether that's through professional development opportunities or through other benefits like time off or something like that. Yeah.
Wow, and you've been kind, or combined, you all gave us a ton of statistics, and I don't know if we're going to be able to somehow make them available through a link or a page somehow. I don't know if you've got a spot where these are all compiled. If we can do that, we will. If we can't, you can call our office and maybe we can send you a copy or something, which my chief of staff will be saying, another thing we're going to do. But we try to do so much, and my chief of staff is darn amazing. So shout out to the people that are behind the scenes and make all this happen. But one of the statistics I also saw in here was that 46.3% of Vermont residents donate $25 or more to charity. And I think it's important to recognize that volunteerism is something you can do with your time and your energy. It's something you can do with your money. And also, in order to organize volunteers, it sometimes takes resources. So donating to organizations that help do the volunteer work is also important. And I just think we're so lucky in Vermont because we have so many people that think holistically about their community. And I think that's part of what, Vermont's one of the happiest states out there as well. And I don't know if there's a statistical correlation between volunteering and giving and happiness. But for those out there who might be struggling a little bit and you have a hard time getting out of bed or going outside, maybe something to try is going out and doing a little bit of volunteering if you have some time instead of something else that you might not be doing if you have a few minutes. And if that gives you some joy, maybe that can also help you turn a little corner on happiness. I don't have anything statistical to back that up, except that I know when I help out a little bit and you see how that impacts people, or you see that cleaner riverside or roadside, you just feel better. And we often, you talk about a multiple bottom line, we get so fixated on money, and obviously for many it's paycheck to paycheck, an incredible struggle, that we fail to sometimes see the other values of how to get through our days in a happier space. And not everyone has the time or the money to be able to volunteer, but maybe by volunteering we can give other people that time so that they can also pay it forward and increase that. Does that all make sense? Am I just rambling? Or do you all feel, with your experiences, does that make sense with groups you've worked with?
I think it definitely connects you to a purpose beyond yourself and to a greater good. And that's very naturally fulfilling and motivating and connecting. And there's more types of wealth than just money, and your connections in your community are a large portion of that. And just in terms of philanthropy, it's a really important strategy for nonprofits as well to have a volunteer component, because volunteers they're intimately related to your activities are 66% more likely to also give you money. So it feeds the ability of a nonprofit to have people power to do an activity, to fund new activities, to support people that may need different types of resources. So it contributes in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, and in terms of different types of resources, I think that another form of volunteering, which we've touched on, could just be very informal, of helping your neighbor bring their groceries inside or something like that. And so in terms of resources, I think it's great to mention that resources come in many forms, and just lending a friendly hand.
So that 2 minutes can do it, as opposed to, I don't have an hour to volunteer, right?
Sure, absolutely. And for me, that's been the most impactful thing about my time volunteering, is just really getting to know people, or getting to know spaces and communities that I've worked in, and how more heads are better than one, and solving things together is always better than doing it alone.
Fair enough. I've actually talked a lot when I'm out talking with groups of people about how they can impact the political process and what's happening in our democracy with engagement or non-engagement, and who's making the decisions, and do people feel they have no voice in the system, that finding 15 minutes a week for democracy, learning a little bit more about a topic or not, just knowing your own experience and sharing that with a legislator, your representative or your senator, to help them know more about what's going on in their communities, can impact the policies that are here. And the policies that are here often impact funding for childcare, or cleaning up our lake or in rivers, or climate change, or raising minimum wage so people don't have to work 55 hours a week, but could maybe work 50 hours a week and suddenly have a little more time with their family, or to walk and clean up the side of the road. So many ways that folks can volunteer. And as we get towards wrapping up, I just want to make sure, if either of you have, we gave out one website earlier, but if there's websites, resources, ideas on how people can find volunteering opportunities, what would you suggest people do? Or can you list off any websites or ways to find more information if people want to search for their own thing that gives them passion and results in their passion? So you gave Peace Corps, I don't know if there's others.
United Way is often a big organizer, so there are web pages across the state. There's Wild
Is that
Pond.
United Way dot something, do you know?
It's probably unitedway.org, I'm not certain.
Well, we'll look it up and we'll get it on the screen.
There's, if there's an organization that's of interest, you can contact them directly and they can steer you towards those opportunities. Boards and Commissions, the State of Vermont webpage.
Or your local town webpage as well.
Your local town
right?
webpage, yep. For the Peace Corps community, if you're a returned Peace Corps volunteer, we have Facebook and we have a listserv. So you could send an email to Green Mountain RPCVs at gmail.com.
RPCV?
S, technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
That will connect you into our listserv and ask you for how you want to get involved with our extensive network across the state. And I am running a small woman-owned business that's actually trying to be a one-stop shop for volunteer coordination between businesses and nonprofits. So I've been farming through resources and opportunities, and really would like to connect people with their mission and values to an opportunity.
And you can even, there's a lot of small businesses that aren't nonprofits, aren't something you think of as an organization to volunteer for, but even small businesses could use some volunteers sometimes. So there's no criteria for this is allowed to have volunteers and this isn't, if I'm not mistaken.
Or they can offer volunteers if they have a unique technical skill, like a accounting firm might help CVOAO do their tax preparation in the spring, or so.
Yeah, do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, some other things that come to mind include if you're a student asking what community engagement opportunities there are through your school, as well as getting.
And that could be high school as well as college,
exactly,
right?
Exactly, yeah.
There's
Middle school even.
Middle
service
school.
learning coordinators.
For sure. And then in addition to that, I would encourage people to get in touch with their friends and ask, what organizations or issues do you care about, and let's go online together and figure out who we should be connecting with and reaching out to.
And even, I would say I know of different high school kids, youth I suppose, who are organizing around issues to change things in their school or in their community. And organizing is a part of volunteering for the community. When you're trying to work to improve the circumstances in your school for some aspect of your community, that's volunteerism as well. And sometimes it takes a lot of energy and effort, and you don't think of it as volunteering, but that's really what it is, and it's for the betterment of many in the community. So Wendy and Gina, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any last thing you want to add real quick before we wrap up. Any thought? If not, thank you. I really appreciate your being here today. Thank you for your service that you've done in the past and obviously are continuing to do. And I don't think you're going to be stopping. So thank you for your service in the future, because really I think it's clear you both, maybe I know the volunteer, get so much out of it, often more than you put in. So once you got the bug, you're kind of stuck, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.